Welcome back to our channel, the place where English becomes part of your daily life. We're so happy you're here with us. Today's episode is special because we'll talk about something every English learner needs: how to introduce yourself in a natural, confident way.
That's right. Most learners know how to say, "My name is," but then they freeze. They don't know what else to add. But introductions are not only about names, they are about connection, personality, and confidence. So, today, we're going to show you how to go beyond the basics and actually impress people when you talk about yourself in English.
You know, Tom, when I ask my students to introduce themselves, most of them only say, "My name is Maria. I'm from Spain." And then they stop. The problem is, when they stop, the conversation also stops. It feels too short, almost like they're afraid to continue. But introducing yourself should be like opening a door. You're inviting the other person to step inside and learn more about you. That's why I always encourage my students to add more layers: their hobbies, their goals, even something fun about their personality.
That's so true. And here's the funny part: many learners already know enough vocabulary to make a great introduction, but they just don't use it. They keep things too simple, maybe because they are shy or afraid of mistakes. But let me tell you this: mistakes make you more human, not less confident. If you only say, "My name is Tom," nobody learns anything about you. But if you say, "Hi, I'm Tom, I'm from a small town near the mountains, and I love hiking on weekends," suddenly, people feel like they know you. And guess what? They also have something to respond to. They might say, "Oh, I love hiking too."
Exactly. It's not about using big, complicated words. It's about showing a little bit of your life. For example, instead of only saying, "I'm Jennifer," I might say, "Hi, I'm Jennifer, but my friends call me Jen because it's shorter. I'm originally from a seaside town, so I grew up loving the ocean. And now, whenever I travel, I always look for beaches." Do you see how much more interesting that sounds? It's still very simple English, but it creates a picture in the listener's mind. They can imagine the ocean. They can imagine me traveling. It's almost like telling a mini story about myself.
That's such a good point. And honestly, even adding just one small detail can change everything. If I say, "I'm Tom," that's okay. But if I add, "I'm Tom, I'm from a small city near London, and it's famous for its old castle," suddenly, people become curious. They might ask me about the castle, about the history, about the city. Now, we have a conversation, not just a boring introduction.
Let's talk about jobs or studies, because that's another area where people give very short answers. I often hear, "I'm a student," or "I work in an office." That's it. But you can expand it in a very simple way. You could say, "I'm a student at university, and I'm studying architecture because I love designing buildings." Or, "I work in an office, and my favorite part of the job is meeting new clients." This gives people a chance to connect with you on a deeper level.
Absolutely. I mean, think about it: if you only say, "I'm an engineer," nobody really knows what that means in your life. But if you say, "I'm an engineer, and I enjoy solving problems because I've always loved puzzles since I was a kid," now you're telling a story. You're showing a piece of your personality. And that's what makes people remember you.
And don't forget hobbies. Honestly, hobbies are one of the easiest ways to make introductions fun. Imagine someone says, "I like football." That's fine, but it's very basic. Instead, try this: "I really enjoy playing football on weekends with my friends. We have a small local team, and every Saturday we play in the park. It makes me feel relaxed after a busy week." Do you see how much richer that sounds? You're not just saying you like football, you're sharing a little piece of your life.
That's so good. And hobbies are perfect for creating connections. If I say, "I like cooking," maybe the conversation ends quickly. But if I say, "I love cooking Italian food, and my favorite dish to prepare is homemade lasagna because it reminds me of my grandmother," suddenly, people want to ask more questions. They might even say, "Can you cook for me one day?" or "What's your secret recipe?" Now, you're not only introducing yourself, you're starting a friendship.
Another thing I recommend is to share something unique or even surprising about yourself. For example, you can say, "I once traveled to 5 countries in one summer," or "I can play 3 musical instruments." People remember these little facts because they're unusual. and they make you stand out. Think of it as giving people a reason to say, wow, really? Tell me more.
Yes, those fun facts are powerful. Let me give you an example. If I introduce myself and say, I'm Tom, and when I was a kid, I wanted to be an astronaut, that makes people laugh or smile. It gives them something to connect with emotionally. They might say, oh, me too, or that's so cool. It's not about being perfect, it's about being memorable.
Another trick I like is talking about your daily routine when you introduce yourself. For example, instead of saying, I'm a student, I might say, I'm a student, and every morning I wake up early, drink coffee, and spend 1 hour reading English books before class. Do you see what happened? Now I'm giving the listener a small window into my life. They can imagine me with a cup of coffee and a book. It feels more real, more personal.
Right, and you don't need advanced English to do that. You can keep it very simple. For example, I'm Tom, and every day after work I like to go running near the river because it helps me relax. That's only one sentence, but it says a lot: my name, my routine, and even my personality. Simple English, powerful message.
And if you're worried about making mistakes, here's my advice: smile. A smile is part of your introduction too. When you smile, people focus less on your grammar and more on your energy. For example, if you say, I'm Jennifer, I like music very much, and you smile, people will still feel comfortable. They'll feel your confidence even if the words are not perfect.
That's so true. Confidence is not about speaking perfectly, it's about speaking bravely. I once met a student who introduced himself like this: my English, not perfect, but I want to practice. And everyone loved him. Why? Because he was honest, open, and smiling. That honesty made him unforgettable.
You know what else helps? Talking about your dreams. For example, I'm Jennifer, and one of my dreams is to open a small cafe by the ocean where I can serve coffee and play music. That tells people about who I am, but it also makes them curious. They might ask, why a cafe by the ocean? And boom, the conversation keeps going.
Oh yes, dreams are amazing conversation starters. If I say, I'm Tom, and one day I want to travel around the world by motorcycle, people immediately want to ask questions. They might say, where would you go first, or do you already have a motorcycle? It's not just an introduction anymore, it's the beginning of a story.
Here's something important. Don't be afraid to use humor. If you can make people smile or laugh, they will never forget you. For example, I might say, I'm Jennifer, I love learning languages, but I'm terrible at dancing. Seriously, don't ever invite me to a dance floor. That's funny, it's real, and it shows I don't take myself too seriously.
That's great advice. I once introduced myself like this: hi, I'm Tom, and I love coffee so much that if you cut me, maybe I'd bleed espresso. People laughed, and immediately, we were connected. Humor is like magic, it breaks the ice and makes introductions more human.
Something else you can do is share a memory. For example, I'm Jennifer, and one of my favorite memories is watching the sunrise from a mountain with my friends. That's why I love mornings so much. You see, it's not just an introduction. It's a story, a piece of my life.
And stories always work. If I say, I'm Tom, and when I was 10 years old, I built a small radio with my dad, suddenly, people are curious. They want to know more about my childhood, my interests, my family. That's how introductions turn into deeper conversations.
Let's talk about tone of voice too. If you introduce yourself in a flat voice, people may lose interest. But if you introduce yourself with energy like, hi, I'm Jennifer, I love art, and I can spend hours in a museum without getting bored, people will feel your passion. It's not only about words, it's about the music in your voice.
Yes, and sometimes slowing down helps. Beginners often speak too fast because they're nervous. But if you slow down and speak clearly, even with simple words, you sound confident. For example, my name is Tom. I live in London. I love the city because it's full of history. Slow, clear, and powerful.
You know what works really well? Using contrasts. For example, I love reading books, but I'm terrible at finishing them. Or, I enjoy cooking, but I'm always bad at cleaning the kitchen after. These little contrasts make you sound funny and real.
I love that. I sometimes say, I'm Tom, I'm from England, but I actually hate rainy days. People laugh because it breaks the stereotype. Everyone thinks English people love the rain, but I admit I don't. That makes the introduction more interesting.
Beginners often forget they can use body language. Even a simple gesture, like pointing to yourself when you say your name, or miming drinking coffee when you say you love coffee, can make your introduction more fun. English is not just words, it's communication with your whole body.
Exactly. I remember once a student introduced herself by saying, I love basketball, and she pretended to throw a ball into the air. Everyone laughed, and immediately we knew something about her. That little gesture made her introduction unforgettable.
Here's a tip. Try to connect your introduction with the present moment. For example, if we're recording this podcast, I could say, Hi, I'm Jennifer, and I'm so excited to be here talking to all of you about English. That feels natural because I'm connecting myself to the situation right now.
Perfect. I could say, Hi, I'm Tom, and honestly, this is one of my favorite topics because I love teaching introductions, they're the start of every friendship. Now I'm not only giving information about myself, but also showing enthusiasm for the moment.
Another good idea is to mention what makes you different. For example, I'm Jennifer and I can't live without music. I carry headphones everywhere I go. It's simple, but it tells people what makes me unique.
Yes. I sometimes say, I'm Tom, and I drink tea every morning, but don't tell anyone I still prefer coffee. That little detail, that small secret, makes people smile and feel closer to me.
Also, don't be afraid to mix emotions into your introduction. For example, I'm Jennifer, and one thing that makes me really happy is helping people learn. When you talk about feelings happy, excited, proud, your introduction feels more human.
Exactly. I sometimes say, I'm Tom, and something I'm really proud of is learning guitar when I was 25. It wasn't easy, but it taught me that it's never too late to start. That's not just information, it's inspiration.
Here's another one. Share something small but relatable. For example, I'm Jennifer, and I never start my day without coffee. Almost everyone understands that. It makes people nod, laugh, and connect instantly.
Totally. I could say, I'm Tom, and every Sunday, I watch football with my friends. It's our little tradition. That's not complicated English, but it makes me sound more alive, more real.
Let's not forget, introductions can also include your goals. For example, I'm Jennifer, and one of my goals is to speak 5 languages before I'm 40. That makes people curious, and maybe they'll ask, which languages?
Great idea. I could say, I'm Tom, and my goal is to publish a book one day. Even if it's just a dream, it gives people something to connect with. Dreams are powerful introductions.
Here's a secret. The best introductions are short, but rich. You don't need a speech. Just 3 to 4 sentences with energy, detail, and a smile are enough. People will remember you if you give them one clear picture.
Absolutely. Think of it like painting a picture with words. You don't need every detail, just enough colors to make the picture beautiful. That's what a good introduction is.
So, to everyone listening, I challenge you, practice your self-introduction today. Don't just say your name. Add a detail about your city, your hobby, or your dream. Record yourself, listen, and then try again. Every time, you'll sound better.
And here's the most important thing, introduce yourself with joy. Remember, English is not just about grammar or vocabulary, it's about connection. When you introduce yourself with a smile, with energy, and with a little story, you're not only learning English, you're making friends all over the world.
Wow, that was such a fun conversation. We shared so many different ways to introduce yourself in English, from talking about your hobbies and dreams to using humor and even little stories.
Exactly. And remember, introductions are not about being perfect, they're about being real. Every time you share a little piece of yourself, you're opening the door to new friendships and connections.
Now, before we finish, we want to hear from you. This is your turn to practice.
Yes. Drop a comment right now and introduce yourself in English. It doesn't matter if it's simple, short, or not perfect, we want to see you try. Write your name, where you're from, something you love, or even one of your dreams.
And here's the fun part, we'll read through the comments, and in our next podcast, we might pick some of your introductions to share. So, if you want your words to be heard around the world, don't be shy.
Smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and turn on the bell so you never miss an episode.
We're excited to meet you all in the comments. This is your English community, and every voice matters. Together, see you in the next episode.